Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, the TV show getting canceled, and we're also going to talk about that Paramount and Skydance merger. This is going to be really interesting because Paramount Animation, they refuse to work with John Lasseter, and guess who's probably going to be in charge of animation over at Paramount Skydance, whatever they're going to call it. Pretty interesting stuff. We're going to talk about all of this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to Indiegogo, secure a copy of Shadowbinders Volume 3, the graphic novel series from Clownfish Studios, written by Geeky Sparkles, drawn in part by me, and we've got some help on this too. Yeah, so check that out. You have about a week, a little over a week yet. Thank you for the support, guys. You can also pick up a copy of 1 and 2. We're going to reprint those books. That's why the fixed goal was so high, because we need to do another print run of 1 and 2. Those books are completely sold out. This is the second time that's happened, so thank you very much for the support, guys. Let's go back out to this, and we're going to talk about Paramount and Skydance, because this is probably what's going on, right? They're probably, Paramount was scrapping a bunch of programs before the merger. Paramount is not in a good place right now at all. They really are not. And now they're going to be merging with Skydance, which is going to be very interesting. But yeah, let's talk about this first. This comes from The Wrap. The Dungeons & Dragons live-action series is not moving forward at Paramount. Hasbro Entertainment plans to shop the project around after a creative rework. So, obviously, it's not working. I mean, Paramount Plus, I don't think is doing very hot anyway, or wasn't doing very hot, so they probably didn't have the money for it. But yeah, creative rework tells me that the direction the series was going in was not a good direction. People didn't want to spend money on it, and it's probably a very expensive show. I imagine it's expensive. I hope it's expensive. I hope it's not like The Witcher, but watch it wind up on Netflix with a budget like The Witcher. Paramount says that they're no longer going to be moving forward with the live-action Dungeons & Dragons series based on the Hasbro role-playing game franchise. Again, coming from The Wrap, Hasbro Entertainment plans to shop the series to other potential buyers after the project undergoes a creative rework. An individual familiar with the matter told The Wrap. Changes will include a new creative team. So it's not working out very well for them. The move, which is a result of creative differences, comes after the project received an 8-episode straight-to-series order in January of last year. See, here's the thing, guys. Just because something's announced doesn't mean it's actually going to get made. So you have to be kind of skeptical, especially now with Hollywood crumbling. There are so many projects out there that may never see the light of day that were already announced, and they've just been memory hold or whatever. A lot of people are taking bets on whether or not the Masters of the Universe movie is actually going to happen, because the Netflix series did not perform that well. And movie theaters are in shambles right now. And does anybody want to see Borat as Skeletor? Is that what they're doing? And it's supposed to take place on Earth? I'm like, no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. The only saving grace for that one, I think, is Travis Knight, who did Bumblebee, and he did some movies for Leica. He did Paranorman and Paranorman. Yeah, it was Paranorman and Kubo. I think he did, and I think he's a good director. But I don't know. I think Masters of the Universe had a chance to come back, and I think it's done, personally speaking. But yeah, so the series was a co-production between E1 and Paramount Pictures, with E1 serving as the lead studio. E1 got sold to Lionsgate. In addition to the series order for the D&D series, that's awkward, Paramount Pictures released Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly in theaters last year. Yeah, so here's the thing. They're trying to push this series through now because the Dungeons & Dragons movie actually had a pretty good score on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm gonna be honest, this is one of the few times that I actually walked back a preemptive opinion that I thought the Dungeons & Dragons movie looked like shit, and it did. The way that they marketed the movie, it looked like shit. I waited about 6 months to watch it, and I freaking loved it. And I'm like, this is nothing like they advertised. If they had shown the good parts, if they had shown the good parts and the people working on the movie, if they had only kept their mouths shut about politics, because we had people out there running at the gums about politics and how, the male characters were going to be emasculated and all this. And they had the unfortunate luck, I'm going to be honest, they had the unfortunate luck of, releasing the movie during the OGL 1.1 debacle, which was a very condensed version of that. Hasbro basically is like, hey, we're going to own your stuff. If you create fan products or spinoffs or supplements for D&D, you got to have a license and we can own your stuff. And it was a very, very unpopular decision. And it definitely hurt the brand. And I think the ripple effects of that have been felt throughout all of tabletop, because a lot of people jumped ship. A lot of people decided they were going to give up on Wizards of the Coast. And as if that wasn't enough, over in the Magic space, we had Hasbro calling the Pinkertons on a guy for opening a box of cards a couple of weeks early. And then they got busted multiple times using AI art after denying that they were using AI art. So there's all kinds of controversy. They finally fired Cynthia Williams. She was awful. Larian's not coming back to do another Baldur's Gate, even though that was a massive hit for Hasbro. They're going to try to do it on their own. I guess they're going to do D&D games on their own. They don't know what the hell they're doing with D&D. I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's just a board game brand to them. It's just part of the IP portfolio. I think literally anybody else could take the D&D IP and do more with it, but I digress. But yeah, they're like, oh, well, hey, the movie was good. Yeah, well, just because the movie's good doesn't mean the movie had a lot of revenue attached to it, right? It doesn't mean a lot of people went out to see the movie. It doesn't mean people bought the toys. I know for sure they're not buying the toys because all those D&D movie figures are all sitting at Ollie's, along with a whole bunch of recent D&D modules. And it's like they've just completely destroyed this brand. They really have. So yeah, creative update means we're going to fix this. Now, I hope the creative update isn't we're going to take the warrior from the cover of the red box set and turn him into an overweight brown woman, because that's what they did. That's how they decided they were going to celebrate the 50th anniversary. They're going to change, retcon a lot of classic characters. That's not going to go well. Actually, if you were going to do a live action D&D series, you go to Brazil and you find the people that put together that car commercial. You get this cast back together, although Bobby's probably way too old now. And you teach them all to speak English. Whatever. I'll watch it in Portuguese. I don't care. But this is the most amazing live action representation of D&D I've ever seen. And you base it on the cartoon show because that's what everybody knows. And you get some classic characters in there like Warduke, whatever you want to do. And you make it a celebration of the franchise. And but they're not going to do that because the franchise until 5 years ago was incredibly problematic. And anybody at Wizards will tell you that. So there is that. So let's talk about Paramount and Skydance, because I think that is part of what prompted this. So yeah, they're going to merge. Paramount and Skydance are going to merge. Now it's interesting though. If you remember a couple of years ago, Paramount said they weren't ever going to work with John Lasseter. They were never going to work with John Lasseter. They put out a memo. I know that Women in Animation had a complete meltdown that John Lasseter was still allowed to work in the animation industry, even though to this day, I still don't know exactly what he did wrong. And Disney's suffering for it tremendously. I mean, ever since he left, like every movie they put out has been dud after dud after dud. And they definitely need John Lasseter at Disney, but I'd never go back. I'd be like, no, after what you did to me, I'm not coming back. But yeah, so he's still hanging around. He might actually wind up being in charge of Paramount Animation. Wouldn't that be interesting? This is the merger. Paramount and Skydance agree to terms of a merger deal. They've agreed to the terms of the merger. According to CNBC, the deal could be announced in the coming days. The agreement terms come after weeks of discussions and a recent competing offer from Apollo Global Management and Sony Pictures. They agreed to the terms of a merger. Paramount Special Committee and the buying consortium agreed to the terms. The deal's awaiting sign-off from Paramount's controlling shareholder, Sherry Redstone, who owns National Amusements, which owns 77% of the shares. The agreement terms come after weeks of discussion and a recent competing offer from Apollo Global Management and Sony. We received the financial terms of the proposed Paramount Skydance transaction over the weekend, and we're reviewing them. The deal currently calls for Redstone to receive $2 billion for national amusements. Skydance would buy out nearly 50% of Class B Paramount shares at $15 a piece, or $4.5 billion, leaving the holders with equity in the new company. That is chump change compared to tech, isn't it? Like, you're looking at these deals for, like what Elon Musk paid for Twitter or any of these tech companies. And it's like, oh yeah, well, here's a major Hollywood studio and it could be had for just a couple of $1 billion, just a couple of $1 billion. But you know what I'm saying? Skydance and Redbird would also contribute $1.5 billion in cash to Paramount's balance sheet to help reduce debt. Following the deal's close, Skydance and Redbird would own 2/3 of Paramount. The negotiated terms were reported earlier by the Wall Street Journal. The deal would not require a vote from shareholders, which is part of the negotiations. Paramount's annual shareholder meeting will take place on Tuesday. They're on fire. Paramount's on fire. They got to do something. So this is probably why we're not seeing any Star Trek announcements or anything either. The deal is valued at $8 billion, an increase from the $5 billion offer on the table earlier. Under those earlier terms, Redstone would have received less than $2 billion for her stake, and the Class B shareholders would have been bought out at nearly 30% premium, yada, yada. Yeah, so they had their CEO step down, and they plan to present strategic priorities at Tuesday's meeting. And they're going to have there will be a previously scheduled board meeting where the temporary leaders will again present. Yeah, so this probably is part of what's going on. I don't think it's everything. I think just the show was not coming together. I think it was a combination of the show not coming together, Hasbro not being in the best of financial shape right now. They sold E1 off. The last D&D movie was a box office bomb, even though it was good. And I'll go on record saying the movie was good. I actually liked the movie quite a bit. I was pleasantly surprised. God, I love that fat dragon. That was, I laughed. I love that dragon. It looks like one of our cats. But yeah, I mean, everything's pretty much going up in flames in Hollywood right now. So I don't think anything that's announced, until you see it in the theater, until you see it on streaming, I wouldn't bet on it. But I think it would be hilarious if John Lasseter wound up in charge of Paramount Animation. That would be amazing. And Paramount might actually kick Disney's ass, because Disney doesn't know what they're doing right now. So there we go, guys. Gonna wrap this one up. It's just another day in Hollywood. Please subscribe. Check out the Indiegogo campaign for Shadowbinders Volume 3, as well as 1 and 2. We'll talk to you later.